Welcome to the College of Wealth podcast, the ultimate financial guide to help you understand your financial stresses and how you can build from it. Your lessons won't be in class, and your projects can either save you or earn you money. We host episodes 2 times a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays to help you reach your financial freedom. Now let's get started with your hosts, Owen, Paradis, and William Goulet.
Halloween edition. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Owen Paradis. I'm here with my co-host, William Goulet, and we're proud to present to you the College of Wealth podcast.
Podcast.
Halloween edition, that is.
The Halloween edition. Yes, it is.
Hey, this
Spooky time of the year. So let's just say.
It is a spooky time of the year here. It's a financial podcast, so because, although it is spooky, it's going to be financially spooky.
Yes,
and we teach you the latest and greatest information about money because at the end of the day, it is crazy, scary money-making world.
Yeah, I'm thinking we should drop the crazy for today and
Just
say that it's a spooky
money-making world.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Can't disagree.
It is true. And because of that, because it is a scary money-making world, we do like to advise that this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. And it's only really meant to...
Well, okay, so hold on. I got something about that.
Okay.
So saying that it's for entertainment purposes only, I think doesn't present the full picture of what we actually offer. We don't just offer entertainment. I think we offer spooks. We offer scares. And even the EBGBs. So
Okay.
I was thinking, rather than saying for entertainment purposes only, we could say something like scaretertainment. That's not easy to say, but I think it's appropriate.
No.
No scaretertainment?
No.
Okay, we'll drop it. How about infotainment because of the information that we give out?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm fine with deviating there, but scaretertainment was almost worse than tainment info.
As soon as I tried putting it together, I'm like, scaretertainment? How would you say that? And then as I hear you say, I'm like, oh, it's scaretainment, obviously. Whatever, man.
Needless to say, we do like to have entertainment on this podcast, but we do like the financial component behind it all, too. And because of that, we do give a little bit of preemptive that both Will nor myself are not financial advisors by any means here.
Certainly not me, and I'm not a ghost either.
I'm not one either, but
True.
at least we graduated in business. We both have our bachelor's degrees. I work in finance. Will works in marketing. It's to validate that we have this kind of...
Valid is the right word. And
Yes.
as I like to say, it shows that our interest is valid, but not just in any way. The Gen Z kind of way.
Exactly. And last but not least, it also gives us a showing, just a proof that we have a passion for this kind of stuff here. We really love talking about business. We love talking about the industries and what makes the world move in that sense. And we also have 2 other reasons. And what are those reasons,
Yes.
Will?
Yes, I'd love to hop in. First of all, we love to scare deficits away. And which is to say, we don't want to lose money,
Yes.
and we love to save money. But at the same time, we want to welcome into our haunted mansion the profits.
You're
which is to say,
really stretching these horrors a lot.
Which is to say, we love to make money.
Money.
Okay, all right. Enough spooky puns. I think we got a spooky episode anyhow in front of us.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. These are actually before we hop into the topic for today's episode, we're gonna be I'd just like to go and say make sure to give us a 5-star review on Apple or on Spotify, it'd be greatly appreciated. Obviously, it'd be awesome. Help us with the algorithm there. If you like visuals, go and check us out on YouTube as well. Just for the fun of it, of course. If you like visuals, at College Wealth Podcast, comment and subscribe. Or if you want to, go and check us out on Instagram and on TikTok as well, at College Wealth Podcast, for some visuals.
That's some great housekeeping, even dusting away the spider webs, one could say.
So, without further ado, we got to jump into episode 134.
Nice.
And these are going to be some Reddit / online horror stories of the real estate market.
Oh, of real estate. Okay.
So we have 4 different stories here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say 4, but depending on the time, we may have time for more stories here.
Oh, that's
But
nice.
I know we have 2 horror stories from real estate agents. Mm-hmm. And we have 2 horror stories from bad tenants and bad landlords.
Oh, those can get very... You know what? We could make a whole week, basically, out of bad tenant stories and advice to counter
There's
that.
also bad landlords. And one of the stories I have in here, you're going to see as well that it's like, it's not all... There's a reason why there's laws for landlords as well.
Yes,
because there are bad apples out there. And
slumlords are one that stand out.
Yes, exactly. So we're here to cover that today, just to make interesting, like, what not to do. And we're going to go and finish it off by saying how to avoid these problems how to avoid bad real estate agents and how to avoid bad tenants as well.
Wonderful.
But without getting into the stories first, we've got to go and talk about some statistics, obviously.
Statman,
No matter
of course.
what.
Of course.
And the way we have it, this is going to be an interesting one. I'm going to start with the fact first, because this is not really it's not a scary fact, to say the least. But it's an interesting one. And I have to go, and I thought this was just wild. And this one actually, I found that apparently there's a home in the United States, in Manhattan. It's a mansion, approximately 20,000 square feet. And it's actually owned by 5 different countries.
Whoa.
Yes, so it was modeled after the Castle of Versailles.
Okay.
And basically it's owned by Bosnia, Croatia, Macedonia, Serbia, and Slovenia.
That sounds like a nightmare of its own.
Well, the wildest thing is back in the day, it was bought by the Republic of Yugoslavia. And in 1946.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when the Republic dissolved itself into separate countries, it kind of sort of also fell for everyone at the same time. And this was actually used as an embassy as well.
It's so funny that everyone's like, okay, we're dissolving this. We got to redistribute the assets. Well, I want the mansion. Well, I want it too. I want the Castle of Versailles. It's just like, no one decided to let go.
No one decided to let go, so everyone owns this mansion in Manhattan. So I thought this was actually hilarious, so I had to add this fun fact to the story itself.
Wonder what happens if one of them goes bankrupt. One of the countries go upside down.
I have no clue. But our first statistic is a fun one. What percentage of people have indicated that they'd consider buying a haunted house?
Oh my! I'm guessing 30% don't stumble. No, 50% don't stumble on one, of which 20% are uncomfortable. So 30% is left that have considered purchasing a haunted house.
62%.
Whoa!
The vast majority of people would consider purchasing a haunted house.
Interesting. Yep,
This is according to Realtor.com.
that seems high.
Yeah.
I wonder how many what of that percentage, how many would regret purchasing it afterwards.
That's a good one too. They don't have statistics on that one. And I mean, not all of them would answer because they're not all alive anymore.
Oh, there you go. That's great.
But Our second statistic in regards to this here, it's actually from Realtor.com as well. What percentage of people have looked at a home's haunted history before?
25%.
Bingo, 25%. On the money. 25% of people have actually looked up the home's haunted history.
Amazing.
So even just any type of home in general, some of them just don't have a history as well. But I know that unfortunately, my mom figured that out, and it was a little bit of like at first. The cottage that we purchased was a bit scary. Like, it was a bit concerning at first because we figured out that unfortunately the person took their life there.
Yeah.
And this was years ago, but it was just a reality, and that was something that my mom was like, I don't know. And then after, she's like, you know what? I think it's going to be fine, and there's never been any issues whatsoever in this location.
You know, my first job, it was in a kitchen, and there'd be like bread falling down, and ever since I started, it's like, oh, that's just Bob. I'm like, who's Bob, guys? And they're like, Bob's the ghost that's here. I'm like, really? Yeah, really? And I'm there, I'm like, okay. And then the stuff would keep on happening. That's just Bob. I'm like, haha, that's real clever of you. You know, that's funny. You almost got me going. It's like, no, really, it's Bob. I'm like, who is Bob? And I tried to find out the history, and to this day, I still don't know if Bob is real or not.
He's like,
dude,
ooh, please help me here.
Yeah, like, Bob is such a generic name too. That's the name that I would come up with if I were to make up a ghost. Is I'd say it was Bob or John. And
yeah. If you went and said this name, it's Richard, or if it was something.
Yeah, it's Felix. I'm like, oh, poor Felix, man. What happened to him? You know.
Who's the guy who freaking made Felix still alive here? Why is he still around here?
Yeah, was it one of you? Did one of you bother him too much?
Who was the idiot who fired this guy?
Yeah, who fired him? That's a good question.
So our last statistic, and this one is interesting. This was a study in the UK. Houses with creepy numbers attached to them, house numbers, actually turn out to have a little bit less of a value. How much less? This is a dollar amount.
Okay, I hope it wouldn't be more than $3,000 for a number.
$12,000.
Oh!
Creepy house numbers such as number 13 have approximately $12,000 less of a property value.
Wow. Okay, I see. The number, if the number itself is wrong, yeah, it is what do you call that? Not stereotypical.
No, but not just 13. But yeah, if you see that, or if a house has a number 666.
Right. Okay, that diminishes the value. That's tricky, man. I've seen that with an apartment that I was living in. It was the 8th floor. The 8 is an unlucky number in Chinese tradition.
It
and
is.
they were saying, yeah, well, you'll see it. It's always cheaper. The 8th floor. I'm like, I don't care. I'll buy the 8th floor.
I'm willing to risk my life on this one.
Yeah, I'll do it, man.
So now that we got this covered, we're going to be talking about some spooky stories here. And
okay.
The way we're going to start this out is going to be with the real estate side.
Okay. All
right.
right.
This is going to be really cool here. And they're short stories here.
Sure.
And I thought this was really some of them are funny, but some of them are not so funny. So I'm going to say the first story here. And the way it starts off, and like I said, it's very short, but I was showing some students around a large house in the outskirts of town.
Yeah.
Big rooms, nice large ceilings, great value for 6 people sharing. So in reality, it's just some people, like some students, some people who are just looking to split rent there. Nothing
Makes
out of
sense.
the ordinary with that. We go into one of the bedrooms, and one of them notices a door in the corner and asks if all the bedrooms have walk-in wardrobes. which is something that I find is a very big perk for anyone, especially if you have a door attached to another bedroom, like, or if the
Yeah.
bedrooms are interconnecting.
True.
I honestly didn't know what it was. It could have been an in suite, so I walked over, but there was a plank of wood leaning against the door. And that just makes it that much more scary. You don't know. I mean, unless there's renovations. So,
Man, I wonder if it was like holding like the handle shut, or was it like nailed on? You know? Oh man.
well, it just sounds like it was a piece of wood just leaning against the door itself.
Right, right. Don't assume the worst thing first.
Exactly. And so the real estate agent said I moved it aside and I opened up. And turns out it was in fact a walk-in wardrobe. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
However, comma, there was inside of this a walk-in closet was a scruffy man, like in his 20s, and he had underwear around his ankles. And unfortunately, he was injecting illicit substances
Oh my god.
in some questionable areas.
Oh my goodness.
We both stared at each other in complete shock, but I didn't manage to state. But I did manage to state, well, it's big enough to fit a person in it, before before closing the door.
Who's this? The world's funniest real estate agent? He's so quick.
Before closing the door and leaning the wood back against it.
Sorry,
and
sir.
we apologize for interrupting your session.
Yeah, knock before entering the ensuite. The ensuite wardrobe. Yeah.
But the plank of wood is what weirds me out. There was no one else in the house at the time. So how did he get himself in there with the wood outside the door to begin with?
Yeah, that's a great point. Maybe the previous agent before him. Yeah, maybe the previous agent lost the customer because of that. They're like, maybe the next agent will get it. Puts the piece of wood in front of it. There you go. That'll signal him. Don't open it.
Yeah. So a lot of people, no, they don't say what. There was no story about that, like what happened afterwards. But
I bet you it didn't end up in a closed deal. That's my guess.
I would hope not. As a student, like, I don't care if you're trying to save money, unless it had a really good price of some sort. I like get away, get away.
Yeah, because now you're thinking, okay, first thing I got to do is change all the locks, obviously, and check all the floorboards, make sure he's not crawling under or something. You know?
Oh no, exactly. So of course, if you're looking to go and rent out, make sure to get rid of squatters inside of a property before anything. Actually, I just saw an article by CBC having that exact issue as well, where a lady said all is good, everything is good. Her and her husband put the house, saw the house, and they purchased it, and they were excited. And so when they purchased the house, there was a tenant inside of it, and they weren't advised of the tenant at all, and they can't evict the tenant. And because the tenant, was it the tenant review board?
Oh, sure.
There's just a landlord tenant review board. Yeah. Is backed up by 8 months right now. They're basically stuck without a house that they're paying for. Because
that board is the only thing that can approve evictions.
Yes, exactly.
Man, talk about some nightmarish laws. The squatter rights laws are man, they can be hurtful. I've even seen some people actually take over the property. An abandoned property, a squatter goes in there, establishes themselves as the domicile owner. And they say, hey, I have to live 6 months without electricity. But after 6 months of me living in here and no one claiming it, I can claim it just as you file in a $90 paper. You say, yeah, I've been living in it and no one's claiming it. Therefore, it's mine now.
Well, exactly. And that's where it becomes a little bit of an issue in general. So that's just basically the first story itself here.
Yeah, that's...
This one, again, another horror story, but again, comedic in nature. And it was again, the story goes, we were showing a couple around a flat, It was a nice flat in the center of town. So I would assume if it's center town, it's probably one of the busier cities or something like that. But either way,
Yep.
the owner had been renting it out to tenants and wanted to sell on. So there's nothing wrong with that. And he's looking to, yeah, he's just trying to sell it and maybe make his profits or retiring or who knows what they want to do.
Good for you.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on. Everything was fine. It was a little dirty around the edges, but all was well until we got to the washroom. So that's a little bit concerning.
Yeah, that's the one place that you hope that you don't have to do cleanup is the washroom.
The tenant obviously had hygiene issues, as not only were there mushrooms growing around the base of the toilet, in the carpet. So to begin with, I'm just saying it right there. There's carpet in the washroom. I don't like it.
Yeah, that's a bad start. That's a red flag.
Carpet, washroom, 70s, gone. It's done. Stop it with the shag carpet. It doesn't belong in the washroom. There's so much bacteria that gets from. Blech. Blech.
The first little bit of my first house, when I was a kid, we had carpet on the toilet seat. And we're all there. Everyone looks at it. You're like, okay. And, you know, the first time transitioning out of it, it's like, man, you don't have this warmth accommodating you anymore, you know? But then you're there, like, but you can maintain cleanliness. So that's a pretty fair trade, man.
Yeah, I'd rather maintain cleanliness than put carpet.
Yeah, I don't think I could go back.
So, needless to say, there was mushrooms growing around the toilet and the carpet. They had made a little mobile for the window. They had made a little mobile, so those things that spin around, like for babies.
Oh, what? Oh my goodness.
Yes, so interesting. Clear perspex and what we thought was brown paint making a smiley sun face. We noticed it said, and I apologize for this, sun shit beneath and smelt a bit funny. Then we had the horrible realization that it was not in fact paint.
Oh.
Needless to say, the couple did not buy the property.
Oh my goodness. Dude, just being in there, being in something like that, it would be, you go home, you go to your car, like, Purell. You don't touch anything in your car. You get home, you shower, you do a whole load of laundry. Just being around that for me is, I'm quite sensitive to disgust, and mushrooms already is pretty bad. But a sun shit smiley face, that's not for me.
It is not a selling point, people.
Again, who is this? Fact. The world's funniest tenant as well. He's got a sense of humor.
So I'll say another one from a real estate perspective. These are interesting to say the least. The title of this one, it says the one that made you cry inside. I hadn't been at my branch for very long, but I had succeeded and bought myself a brand new car. My first ever car, and I loved it. A few days into owning my car, I drove a prospective buyer to a house and parked up with the passenger door curbside. Mm-hmm. They opened the door quite hard, not realizing there was a high curb. The bottom of the door scraped along the pavement and was stuck wedged open. They must have given it some force, and I wouldn't budge. And I ended up having to drive forward, scraping it even more to get it loose. I was furious, and the buyer did not purchase the home.
Oh, that sucks. That's an incidental cost if I've ever seen one, man.
So, needless to say, for real estate agents, do not go and drive your prospective buyers. Just go and meet them.
You know, I've got a friend that I don't know if he has a heavier door or whatever it is, but every time this guy gets in our car, he goes and he slams the door, and every one of my friends will go and we'll look at him like, you that's my door, man. Do you mind?
That's so. My girlfriend did exactly that about a month ago.
Yeah,
and I heard that, and I'm like, ugh. Thankfully, it's not as bad as what they were saying, but I'm there and I'm like, I hope I didn't hear what I heard. And then she's there and she's like, oh, it's just the bottom of the door. I'm like, no, don't say that. That is my car. and you're going to go and start treating my car like that, you're going to go and buy yourself your own car.
You got hit with the oopsie.
Well, like I would go and say I'm sorry, but it's like, oh well, it's just the bottom of the car.
Man.
No, don't just say it's just the bottom of the car. It'd be equivalent to me just running over, like running over a curb. Oh, it's just a bump. No.
Yeah, I actually saw something online. It was a girl that was making a TikTok, and it's when you hit a bump with your car, but then your boyfriend's in. So she goes like that. She's like, oh, there you go. And she looks, sees the boyfriend, and then she goes, "Oh my God, what was that? What was that?"
So needless to say, there's some interesting stuff. I thought that was the one I wanted to say, but this is actually the one I want to actually say. So we're gonna say it quickly.
Yeah, that was a nice +1. And no, I agree.
So I guess it was quick, but this one. So in the year 2000, I bought an old house in northern Tangi. I always have Tangipahoa Parish, Louisiana. Tangipahoa.
You always have a hard time. This is my first time, but I'd have a hard time. But I don't blame.
Come
you.
on, man! You haven't been to Tangipahoa?
Yeah. What is this? The world's hardest city to pronounce?
But so needless to say, it's in Louisiana. My house was fine, but there was a house across the street that everyone said was haunted. It was previously owned by a doctor who did illegal abortions.
Oh.
There were some really creepy medical equipment in the third floor. Her husband died, and the owner sold it in 2003. Several people had died in the house, including children. They sold the house to someone who spent a night in it, and the next day it went to the realtor and demanded to rescind the sale.
Wow.
He said there were dead people everywhere. He sued and won since it had not been disclosed at the act of sale. I understand that when a house has been had a terrible violent incident like that, they need to disclose that too.
Yeah, there's a lot of disclosures that need to be done. If it's a violent incident or a really bad crime. In Breaking Bad, they had which of course they were cooking meth in Breaking Bad.
Yes.
And he said, they're asking $800K for a house. They're like, my offer, $400K. And then they're like, oh yeah, this is ridiculous. He's like, oh yeah, well, I guess I didn't see the meth lab. Once I heard about that, I heard there was some leeway in order. That's what I call good old fraud, because I didn't see that in your disclosure documents. I'm like, oh, there you go.
Sneaky.
So, disclosure is huge. And, dude, that house sounds like a nightmare.
Literal nightmare.
Oh.
So now that we have that, we've got some nightmares put into place. Now we're going to talk about some tenant nightmares and talking about some bad landlords and just bad business practices.
All right.
This person wrote a whole article on this here, and their bad stories about bad landlords. So it's going to be interesting. I'm not going to go into the preemptive, but they have plenty of stories, and it starts off with their first apartment. Okay. When I was getting my first apartment, a person in the office I was contacting typed in my social security number wrong for a background check, which is a normal practice to be doing nowadays. I asked him to repeat the number to me. He had it correct at this point, and asked him to run it again. He did, and when nothing came up, he accused me of identity theft, fraud, etc. He threatened to call the police and ended up costing me my first choice of an apartment. Turning to his manager, she ran my background check and within a minute was able to pull up my information.
How could you go? Police?
They were threatening. They were threatening to call the police.
That's pretty
because
funny.
of identity fraud.
Yeah,
and it's because they were not placing the information correctly. So that was their first apartment. Their second apartment, and this one's pretty wild. So first, I was informed by an agent that the first choice of a place was taken, so I had to settle. After I signed the lease, I was asked by a different lease agent why I did not go for the first choice, which has been available for months. And my first choice was just rented out the morning of the lease signing by a couple that came by the apartment complex first. So no biggie. I had a roach problem, terrifyingly bad one, due to the heat and bad neighbors. I had managers lie about resolving this issue. I had an office manager claim she talked and resolved the problem with me, even though she had not. Had to call a regional manager to resolve the issue, who ended up ordering Terminix treatments. The Terminix employee said he forgot something in his truck, and when he arrived, completely left and accused me of interrogating him and trying to make him liable for my health.
What?
Because I asked, yeah, and it says in brackets WTF, because I asked him what products he was using. So apparently you can't, as a terminator, you're not allowed to disclose your products you're not allowed to tell which products you're going to be using when you're terminating.
Really?
Lots of sarcasm.
Oh, okay. yeah. Something's off.
Something, yeah. So months went by where I repeated to try to get in contact with the office manager and regional manager to set up extermination. Refused or scheduled treatment of property whenever I told them and I wouldn't be available. Or when I told them I wouldn't be available. Was offered to transfer units, but only if I extended my lease. Resulted in me taking out a property code and legally forcing them to pay for me hiring someone to exterminate the roaches, which numbered in the hundreds of dollars, making it possible to use the apartment without fear of swallowing a roach.
Ugh.
The kicker of the story, they hired a new person for the office to take care of the phone calls. Also, this was a $900 a month semi-luxury apartment in the suburbs for a big apartment completely that does luxury apartments.
Oh my goodness, dude! I could roaches is
rough.
Yeah,
that's it.
I every now and then, like, you know how it might be normal, you might find a spider on the ground. I see a spider, I'm like, oh man, is this whole place infested? I immediately think to the worst thing.
Oh, it is really rough. And thankfully, if we do have a roach problem around here, they're tiny little ones there.
Yeah, true. I saw this one guy who was cleaning manholes.
Okay.
And he was just spray washing the manholes, and he's got roaches crawling all over his body and his head, and I'm talking cockroaches a little bit bigger than a water bottle cap, let's say. Yep. They're just crawling all over. I'm like, dude, that guy is, I don't know what he's getting paid, but it's probably not enough.
I wouldn't even want to know. Like, yeah, I would not want to deal with that crap.
My goodness.
No pun intended there.
Yeah. Sun shit. I wouldn't want to deal with that crap either.
So that was one of the sections. I can go on. Let's see which one.
Bad landlord. We can agree on that.
Yeah, we could definitely agree. Let's see. This one is I saw this, and this is part of their first house. It's also the biggest one, but it's also really interesting. Mm-hmm. Had a realtor not run my application because the fee for the application on the listing online was $10 less than what it was supposed to be. Some places, especially in Toronto and bigger areas, will have application fees.
Sure.
Had to drive out 40 miles and they're back for $10 off a $90 application. Came to sign a lease after agreement on price and fees and being approved. Truck parked up, ready to move in. Said bye to my last apartment. Was informed to wait a week because the owner was still living there. Took 4 hours of discussion and direct discussion with the owner to finally be allowed into my apartment. So basically, he had the approval and said this is the day to go. Packed everything, was about to go, and gets a call to go and say, hey, can we back this up a week? No, you can't do that.
No.
So because of that, there has been some side effects of this, and so the landlord was a bit rushed. The house was a total mess. Carpets were stained. So 7 months later, I decide to get a dog. The owner makes an agreement where we don't have to pay fees and can happily get the dog. So I get the dog, and we asked permission prior before obtaining the dog for permission. While afterwards, the owner changes her mind after the agreement that we had in writing, tries to force us to pay a $500 non-refundable fee, or kick the dog out, or call animal control, all kinds of crap. She decides to claim that she had no knowledge of us getting the dog, even though we had her agreement in writing. Her property manager says the owner, legal landlord under a lease, cannot make these agreements. I sent her a lease quote saying she can. Arguments containing for months with the property manager, ending their emails constantly with, "There will be no further discussion." even though we have legal rights here. We ended up with a small refundable deposit and a sour taste in my mouth. Throughout the proceedings, the property manager clearly didn't know what the heck she was talking about, nor did she know any law. She contacted 3 lawyers who backed them up, saying they were in the right. Yeah. Not sure why they did that, and they probably didn't know what the owner had written agreement that adjoined the lease allowing the dog for free. The dishwasher broke. Landlord took 3 months to repair this dishwasher. 1 month before move out, landlord decided to fix everything that was wrong with the house to entice new tenants. And after the move out, the property manager claims all the damages were marked upon moving in. We caused to try to charge me for repairs for the entire house, even though those issues were done beforehand. And the property manager.
That's why it's best. Yo, go ahead.
It's just the last thing here. Property manager refuses to give up deposit for house because she thinks she doesn't have to. Legal code says otherwise, and she's liable for 3 times the amount. Inform her on it, and do real estate agents really not know of their laws? So that's basically the end of that one.
Yeah, a lot of times, whenever people don't want to give it up, it's a false sense of entitlement. They'll justify it in their head, saying, well, I had to do this and that, and I wouldn't be able to keep this. And they're like, no, that's not how it works. And that's why it's best practice, if there is already existing damage going in, best practice is to take pictures, date them, and if you can,
yes, exactly,
have the landlord or whoever's representing the landlord sign them as well, acknowledging the existing damage.
Well, that's exactly it. You're totally right on that. And I've been told that countless times. Just take photography of what the state of the property is when you walk in. Mm-hmm. And have a timestamp on it just to verify all of it. Just to show that it's not something that you took yesterday and said this is what it was like 2 years ago. Yeah.
And this part is definitely not advice. But I'd even consider, you complain, you say, hey, can we get this fixed? If it's not getting fixed, you might want to fix it yourself and then just charge it back to them. Because then you can charge it back, assuming that you're entitled to have these mistakes fixed. Then if you charge it back to them, then it's like, okay, look, this was, or at least get a quote for it. No, a quote would be even better. If you get a quote for it, then it's marked that, look, this was existing damage.
Yep.
So I take that back. Let's keep that to a quote. Don't fix it.
No, exactly, because you can't guarantee it at all. Just get a quote, exactly.
Yeah, you can't manage the property, right? Because you're not the property manager.
So now that we have this, we're gonna go and share one quick landlord horror story.
Yeah.
And this one is pretty rough.
Okay.
And this one basically saying that many landlords do not allow pets on rental properties. This is off of some websites that I got. Hilarious name, but maidsailors.com.
Okay. Interesting.
Interesting name.
We've had worse.
Yes. But many landlords do not allow pets on rental properties because of the assumption that having animals would mean physical damages to the property. But at the end of the day, it is still the owner's responsibility to train the animal and take proper precautions to mitigate the consequences of their pet's behavior. Mm-hmm. It's only when owners fail to take responsibility for their pets that these problems occur. The problem is very rarely the animal, it's the owner.
Okay, well,
And
that's up to debate.
but typically it's the owner, like it's the owner's training. If you go and treat an animal wrong, then they're gonna start doing stuff. But in this case scenario, we had someone that was in a Reddit thread that said they had a dog that went into the basement to crap. Instead of cleaning it up, they poured latex paint on it to seal the smell. The dog The dog kept crapping, and they kept pouring until latex dog poo lasagna filled the entire room. The floor was mounted about 4 feet high and 10 feet wide, filling the entire basement of nothing but layers of latex paint and dog crap from several years of living there. It took air hammers and chisels and weeks of work to clean up.
Though that paint is so tough to get out, dude. Oh my god, dude, I can't even believe the logic behind it. Like, they had to go buy more cans at a certain point. It must
cost more. It cost more for the paint than it was to pick up the poo and throw it out.
I bet you it was after the first one. It's like, okay, that was stupid. We gotta clean it up. They're like, this is impossible to clean up. And then the dog's starting to form a habit. You're like, are we just gonna have the one? Well, maybe we can just start living like this. And then you just, okay, schloop, a certain amount of...
That's disgusting. It's terrible. Imagine being the poor landlord who has to deal with this.
So much work, so much damage. Oh my goodness.
I don't know if I've said this to you before, but my family unfortunately had a horror story of this here on their side, where unfortunately my mom has a big heart, and she let her heartstrings pull her for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And she owned this property for about 3 or 4 years. I would say about 3 or 4 years. And they had around 4 kids.
Oh, yes.
And it was a full house that she was renting out. And by the end of the 4 years, they had 8 kids.
Whoa.
It had to have been like maybe 3 years. It was very so they had 8 kids, and
they got a
my mom had to evict them because they weren't paying, and on top of that, they were some of the kids were being very rambunctious.
That's a shame.
Yes.
And it's so difficult too, because you always do it for the kids, right?
Well, that's it. And so when we had to go and do that, my mom is really, she's like your mom. She's like your mom, who's like really good with interior design.
Mm-hmm.
And all of it was torn apart, and there was just scuff marks everywhere, holes in the wall and everything. We had to go and redo a whole bunch of stuff. It cost thousands of dollars to fix.
And I'm just guessing, but let me guess, it wasn't that easy to reclaim it, or you lost it completely.
I was too young. I was unfortunately too young to remember this.
Yeah.
So I don't know the process behind it as to why, how long it took.
Yeah, a lot of times it's hard to recoup that at all.
Yes.
Because people have moved on, and it's like, okay, you're going to go to small claims court and summon them and stuff. It's not that easy.
No, it definitely isn't. So our last section, we're going to plow through this quick here, but it's something that I think is important. If you're looking for a real estate agent, here are certain things that you're going to be looking out for to prevent bad real estate, to prevent from hiring a bad real estate agent.
Okay.
The first thing, you got to try having conversation with these real estate agents. Are they good communicators at holding a conversation? Do they seem salesy, or do you seem like good people at selling? Because they're going to be the people who are going to convey your information when you're going to go and put an offer, or you're planning to sell something.
Yes.
So if you have someone who's not a good salesperson, then they're not going to be the right person for you.
True. Are they going to fight for your price?
No, yeah. They may be timid, and that's not the type of person you want in there.
True.
The second thing, look at the reviews for the specific, not the real estate company, but the real estate agent itself. Is there very few reviews? Sometimes experience is a good thing, but if you want to hire someone smaller, it's fine. Maybe their rates are a little bit smaller too, so that that's a trade-off. You're taking a little bit more risk, but you're giving them, they may be a go-getter, but it's a risk you may have to take on.
Yeah.
And the last thing you have to go and do is their reachability. Are they hard to reach? Are they a pain in the butt to deal with? Like, are they constantly distracted on their phone or anything like that when they're with you? Are they preoccupied? They couldn't give their time of day to you. And if that's the case because they don't care about making $2,000 and they're going for that $5,000 in front of you, then guess what? You should drop that $2,000 at that point.
That's my pet peeve is if we're having a conversation, and let's say it, face to face, and then it's oh, sorry, I'm getting a phone call. It's like drop the phone call. Look at you, eh? For those just listening, Owen pulled up his phone while doing that.
Yeah, just as a joke there. But yeah, no, you're totally right in that sense. If you can't give me the time of day or the respect, then why should I give you the time of day and respect? Exactly. Plain and simple. Now, if you're looking to get yourself some good tenants, this is on the other side here. We got 3 different things. Cover your bases. You're looking for good tenants. Review all the credentials that they provide. Be stingy. Get the social security number. Have 3 months of pay stubs. If you want to be ultra stingy in the way it is, make sure they have 2.5 to 3 times rent. Yes. I've even seen that. Like, I have some friends in bigger cities who literally said that they won't consider you if you're not making 3 times rent.
True.
Or you and your partner combined. Yeah, check their credit. Also look at referrals. But referrals I'm iffy on because it can go both ways.
I don't think that's a good indicator.
A bad landlord can go, or a bad landlord could go and say, no, they were good. Meanwhile, they're just trying to get rid of them.
Yeah, and same way around. It's if they want to get rid of someone, they'll say, "Oh, they're the best. We're so sorry to see him go."
Yeah.
But meanwhile, they're just getting rid of him. Great.
Exactly.
Please.
Yeah, I think we're both saying the same thing, but it's true.
Well, you're saying if they want to keep him, they might do the opposite, and I'm saying if they want to get rid of him.
Okay, yeah. It's true. So the second thing too is you got to treat your rental like a business. Mm-hmm. Don't fall for the sob stories. Someone has an excuse as to why they can't make money or why for X, Y, Z. That is seeing you face to face with very little relationship, and they're making an excuse in front of you. Imagine once they have at least a built connection with you, what it's going to be like.
And it's the same thing that we say to our listeners. It's you can save money. Doesn't matter what your condition is. You can save $1. And if they start making excuses, it's an excuse.
Well, that's it. And I'm not saying that all sob stories are invalid, and they can be true. But I mean, if you're trying to build a rapport and someone is starting off with an excuse, it doesn't give good credibility to that person.
You want a strong foundation, and then you can build the rest.
Yes, exactly. You have a good rapport with that person, and it's been 5 years, and like, hey, I'm having a really hard time right now. Is it okay if we defer this month's payment? I'll have everything paid. If they have a good rapport and you trust them enough, maybe you can go and say, yes, absolutely. That's fine. Yep. Sure. And if they pay back, then that's totally fine. It's a one-off. But for someone right off the hop, that may be a different story.
We've had a tenant that would sometimes have a hard time making ends meet. Mm-hmm. And it's, can I do a partial payment? I want to get you the rest as soon as I can. And the answer is yes. You're a fantastic tenant. You always communicate, with us back and forth. And, if you're having some troubles, just be honest.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and that relationship was already strong. Whereas if it's from the get-go, I can immediately see how it's, you're going to start down that person from the beginning.
Exactly. And last but not least, I'm going to say it, charge the right rent.
Yes.
So if you charge higher, then more than likely you're going to weed out the lower paying or lower, people who won't be looking at that. So, yes. But on the flip side, that does not mean that you get to do nothing. So let's say you want to charge $2,000 a month or $3,000 or $4,000, depending on what market you're in. You can do that. You're above what the market rates are going, or maybe just like above the average. You could go and do that. But there is expectations for you to be doing that as well. You can't just go and put that person in there and then leave it be. If there's an issue with them, you better be there within 24 hours or within a reasonable time frame to go and address the issues. They're paying for it.
Premium prices require premium products.
Yes.
And vice versa. If you start offering a premium product, you're going to start earning premium prices. You just got to stand strong and know your value.
Exactly. And exactly, it kind of covers our ground to what we're saying, 2.5 to 3 times rent.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to go and have someone like you're charging, like, I mean, the market that's around here, like $1,700 a month or or let's say $2,000 a month, hopefully that person or that couple can combine make $6,000 a month before taxes, that is.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
So those are some of the ways to cover your grounds from a real estate agent perspective and a tenant perspective, and some stories as well. I know it lasts a little bit longer, but I wanted to do it since it was a special.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was a nice little preemptive, and that we were able to finish out with some tangible advice. So.
Yes, exactly. So with that being said, my name is Owen Paradis. I'm here with my co-host William Goulet, and we're proud to present to you the College of Wealth podcast. Peace.
2 figures peace.
This has been your daily dose of motivation with the College of Wealth podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for listening, and until next episode.